In this video, we will continue to practice graphing sine and cosine as we alter the amplitude and the period. So here we have the A value of 1/3. That controls the amplitude, so the amplitude will be 1/3. The amplitude is always positive. Keep that in mind. Right here in front of the x would be the B value. Because there is no number there, that means the B value is 1, which means the period will not change from the parent function. So the period will remain 2 pi. There is no phase shift on this problem because there's nothing added or subtracted at the end of the problem. So this should be enough information for us to sketch the graph. Because the amplitude is 1/3, I will say that the graph is going to go up to 1/3 and it's going to go down to negative 1/3. Because the period is 2 pi, then I'm going to put 2 pi all the way over here. And for the critical values in the middle, I'm going to have pi. Half of that is pi over 2. And this should be 3 pi over 2. And I think 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2. And this is a cosine function. So I know cosine always starts off at the maximum value and then falls from there. So then it should fall to the midline, and then lowest value, and then back to the midline, and then to its highest value. And there you go. All right, similarly, number 12. The A value is right here. The absence of a number means that the A value is 1. So the amplitude is going to be 1, like the parent function. This is my B value right here. The B value affects the period of the function in the following way. The period is going to be 2 pi divided by that B value. So the period is going to be 2 pi divided by 1/3. Now when you divide by a fraction, that is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3. That means the period is going to be 6 pi. There will be no phase shift because nothing is being added or subtracted on the end. So I'm just going to put none. This should be enough information for us to sketch the graph. Okay, since the amplitude is 1, it's going to go up to 1 and down to negative 1. Since the period is 6 pi, I will have 6 pi right here. And then right in the middle should be half of this, so that should be 3 pi. And then half of that is 3 pi divided by 2, which we will just call 3 pi over 2. Now what about this right here? Well, this is 1 3 pi over 2. This is 2 3 pi over 2. This is 3 times 3 pi over 2. So what is 3 times 3 pi over 2? Well, that is just 9 pi over 2. Okay? This position will always be 3 times whatever this is. All right, and there you go. The rest is super easy. This is the cosine function, so it's going to start off at the top, its highest value, and fall. So it should fall to the midline, and then should go to its lowest value, and then back to the midline, and then its highest value. So it should look like this. And there you go for number 12. All right, how about number 13? This is my A value. So that tells me that the amplitude is 2. This is my B value. The B value determines the period in the following way. The period is always 2 pi divided by that B value. So the period is going to be 2 pi over 1/3. So the period is going to be 2 pi times 3. Because when you divide by a fraction, you multiply it by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 1/3 is 3. So the period is going to be 6 pi. There is no phase shift because nothing is being added or subtracted on the end. So we'll just put none for the phase shift. That should be enough information for us to sketch this graph. Okay, the amplitude is 2. That means it's going to go up to 2 and down to -2. The period is 6 pi, so I'll put 6 pi right here. That means halfway I should have 3 pi. Then half of that is 3 pi divided by 2, which I will just call 3 pi over 2. And then this position should be 3 times whatever this is. So if I take 3 times 3 pi over 2, then that's going to give me 9 pi over 2. All right, it's 1 of these, 2 of these, 3 of these. That's why I just multiply by 3. Okay. And then I just sketch a cosine graph using the usual pattern. So cosine starts off at its highest value, falls to the midline, then goes to its lowest value, back to the midline, and finishes at its highest value. All right. I didn't like this branch very much. Let me try that just one more time. All right, that's a little better. And there you go for your cosine. All right, this is the last problem of this video. Let's give it a try. This is my A value. That determines the amplitude, so the amplitude is 1/2. Notice that even if this was negative, the amplitude would be positive. The amplitude is always positive. This is the B value. The B value determines the period in the following way. The period is always 2 pi divided by the B value. So the period is going to be 2 pi divided by 3. Okay, so the period is 2 pi over 3. Phase shift, none, because nothing is being added or subtracted on the end. All right, time to sketch the graph. Well, the amplitude is 1/2. That means it's going to go up 1/2 and down to -1/2. The period is 2 pi over 3. If I go halfway, well, if this is 2 pi over 3, then halfway should be 1 pi over 3. All right, 2 of them, half would be 1 of them. And then half of that, half of pi over 3 is pi over 6. Now for this position right here, it's always going to be 3 of these. So if I take this and I multiply it by 3 pi over 6, well, 3 goes into 6 twice. So this is going to be pi over 2. All right, this one is always going to be 3 of these. Now we can just sketch the graph using the normal pattern. This is a cosine function, so it should start off at its highest value, and then it should fall to the midline, and then it should drop to its lowest value, and then back to the midline, and it should end up at its highest value. I don't know why this disappeared. Okay, that's weird. Anyway, that's it. And that was the last problem on this video. So I hope this has been helpful, and I will see you on the next video.